Hey, what's up, everybody? Frederic Poag here. So recently, Howard Lutnick came on television, and he said that the numbers for the second quarter of this year for GDP are up by a 3% increase. Oh, man, those are great numbers for GDP. Considering first quarter was at 0.5% negative. That's a 3.5% increase. What a turnaround. But then you have to ask, are those GDP numbers real, or are we being played? That's a fair question considering, well, Trump White House lies about everything. But before I get into that, please like and subscribe. It helps me out. And if you want to see my face again, it helps out with that too. All right, let's get into it. So are the numbers coming from Commerce Secretary Lutnick real? Well, it's a fair question because the more you look at it, the less this 3% increase of GDP feels like a win. And it feels more like a con job. Right now, we're being told the economy looks good and projections are being revised up because it looks so good. Corporatist and MAGA politicians are smiling. And corporate media is going to parrot that line, whatever the White House gives them. But underneath it all, something's off with this data. And they're not so much hiding it, they're just figuring you're too busy to look at it, to really dig into the finer points. Because when you look at it, across the board, consumer demand is soft, which means that people are spending less money on just anything outside the basic necessities. Business investment is shrinking, and exports are down. So, if those numbers are to be believed, what's the only thing that's keeping GDP so high then? Well, it's the sharp drop in imports. And that's not because we're self-sufficient. No. It's because of the Trump tariffs, the uncertainty he's creating with all the chaos, and the cost hikes that have choked off trade. Because the way GDP math works, fewer imports equals a higher gross domestic product. Domestic is the key word in that acronym GDP. So what the Trump administration is doing, they're spinning a collapse as a success. See, the numbers could be right, but they're not being honest about it, and they're not giving you the full story or the context. Let's be clear. The Bureau of Economic Analysis, the BEA, probably didn't falsify the data. They ran the formula, and the number came out. But if the inputs are compromised, what does the output even matter at that point? Because here's what's going on behind the scenes. Survey response rates are collapsing below 45% in some cases. Staffing across statistical agencies is down on the low end 15% to 40%. Advisory panels dismantled. Civil servants working under reclassification threats or direct retaliation. That's all the people and all the metrics and all the data, all the work that goes into what the Bureau of Economic Analysis puts out. Because this isn't about one shady edit. It's about a structural failure. A statistical system gutted of its ability to speak freely or check itself. And the result? Well, it's a number that might be technically correct, but it's fundamentally misleading. What that means is the Bureau of Economic Analysis is no longer untouchable. That's because the BEA loves to talk about its integrity, sealed data rooms, no early releases, neutral methods. But that image only holds up if the surrounding system is healthy. And it is absolutely not healthy. That's because when oversight is stripped, experts are purged, and people who calculate GDP know their jobs depend on not embarrassing the Trump administration. How long until self-censorship becomes policy? That's because independence isn't just about protocols. It's about pressure. And right now, the pressure is coming from the top. The game is being played in broad daylight. Let's go ahead and name names of who's playing it. Howard Lutnick, Trump's Commerce Secretary, didn't just comment on the GDP number, he pre-sold it. He told the press that tariffs would generate trillions, spark massive export surges, and deliver growth before a single quarter of what he was saying was measured. That's not analysis, that's marketing. Then there's Peter Navarro, the ideologue architect of Trump's economic nationalism. You know, the guy that made up a fake expert that he wrote so he could sell his own ideas? He's been preaching about trade war economics for years. He understands how to manipulate numbers without ever touching them. Tariffs reduce imports. Reduced imports inflate GDP. Bingo. Instant talking point. They know the formula. They designed the policy to game the formula. Then they frame the results as proof. That's exactly what Peter Navarro has done his entire academic career. So, can we even trust this math? At some point, you have to ask, if you can't verify the data, how do you know if it's even real? There's no independent audit. There's no public access to the raw inputs. No guarantee that the political operatives haven't shaped which data sets get collected, emphasized, or which ones get buried. The formula might be running, but the kitchen's full of smoke and the fire alarm's been disabled. So no, we can't say the number's fake, but we can say whether it's trustworthy or not. And that should scare the hell out of anyone who cares about facts and empirical reality. So what does all this really mean? What it means is if you can hijack the story of the economy, you can control public perception, mute dissent, and force bad policy through the cover of success. That's what this is. This isn't a recovery. This isn't a comeback. It's a lie told with numbers. So what do? Well, we call it out. We demand transparency. And you trust with your own eyes. If things are bad in your area and costs are going up and people are suffering, then that's what's happening. No matter what the corporate media is telling you, no matter how much they're parroting, oh, GDP increase. That's where this matters. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Keep the faith, defend democracy, and I'll see you later.